Vasishtam.
Book 2. Mumukshukanda, or The Means of Final Liberation. Chapter 15. On Contentment. 1. Vasishtha continued. Contentment is the chief good. Contentment is called there, true, enjoyment. And the contented man, O thou destroyer of enemies, gets the best repose. 2. Those who are happy with their prosperity of contentment, and possess the calm repose of their souls, are as holy saints, and think a sovereignty no better than a bit of rotten straw. 3. Whoever retains a contented mind, amidst all the affairs of the world, he is never disturbed, O Rama, in adverse circumstances, nor ever dejected in his spirit. 4. The saints, that are satisfied with the ambrosial draught of contentment, think the highest affluence and enjoyments of the rich, but poison to their souls. 5. Even the waves of liquid nectar fail to afford that pleasure, which the sweetest taste of contentment, the healer of all evils, gives to its possessor. 6. Abandonment of unfruitful desires and calmness, in those that are obtained, feeling no pain at, and having no sense of pleasure, in anything, constitute what is called contentment here below. 7. Until the mind can enjoy the contentment rising spontaneously in the soul of itself, so long will troubles continue to grow in it, as briars and brambles in a bog. 8. The mind cooled by calm contentment, and purified by the light of philosophy, is always in its full bloom, as the lotus under sunbeams. 9. The ungoverned mind, which is under the subjection of desires, and devoid of contentment, does not receive the light of knowledge, as a soiled mirror takes no reflection of the face. 10. The man whose mind is always bright with the sunshine of contentment, does not shrivel itself, like the lotus in the dark night of ignorance, or adversity. 11. A man, though poor, enjoys the happiness of sovereignty, who is devoid of diseases and anxieties, and whose mind is contented. 12. He is called a contented man, who does not long after what he is not possessed of, and enjoys what he has in its right manner, and is always graceful in his manners. 13. There is a beauty shining in the face of one whose mind has the satisfaction of contentment, the fullness of magnanimity and the purity of thoughts like that of the milky ocean in it. 14. Let a man entertain his self-possession within himself, and abandon his craving of all things, by reliance on his manly exertions. 15. He, whose mind is full with the ambrosia of contentment and a calm and cool understanding, acquires a perpetual composure within himself, as it were by the cooling beams of the moon. 16. All great fortunes wait on him whose mind is strengthened by contentment, as if they were his servants, and as they remain in attendance upon a king. 17. One remaining content and composed in himself, quells all his anxieties and cares, as the rains set down the dust of the earth. 18. Rama. A man shines by the contentment of his mind and the purity of his conduct, as the cooling and spotless moon, when she is full. 19. No one receives so much delight from his accumulation of wealth, as he derives from the sight of the beautiful placid countenance of a contented person. 20. Know, O thou delight of Raghu's race, that the best of men, who are decorated with grace of equanimity, the only quality that adorns the wise, are more honored both by gods and sages than any. Chapter 16. On Good Conduct. 1. Vasishtha resumed saying, Know, O highly intelligent Rama, that the company of the virtuous is everywhere of the greatest benefit to men for their crossing over the ocean of the world. 2. It is the arbor of virtuous company that produces the fresh blossom of discrimination, which being cherished by high-souled men, yields to them its fruits of prosperity. 3. The society of the learned makes solitude appear as company, and the evil of death as good as a festivity, and converts a difficulty to ease. 4. It is the society of the virtuous, which wards off all disasters, that like the frost, invade the lotus beds of our hearts, and baffle the icy breath of ignorance, which deadens our souls. 5. Know, the society of the virtuous, to be the best improver of the understanding, the destroyer of the tree of ignorance, and remover of all our mental diseases. 6. The society of the virtuous produces the light of reason, which is as charmingly fair as a cluster of flowers after it's being washed by rain water. 7. It is the influence of virtuous company that teaches us the best mode of life, which is never impaired or obstructed by anything, and is ever full in itself. 8. Let no man ever keep himself from the association of the virtuous, though he is involved in utmost distress, and cast in irremediable circumstances. 9. The society of the virtuous lends a light to the right path. It destroys the internal darkness of man by the rays of the sun of knowledge. 10. Whoever has bathed in the cold and clear stream of good company is not in need of the merit derived from acts of charity, pilgrimage, austerity and sacrifice. 11. Whoever has the society of virtuous men, and whose lives are free from passions and sins, and doubts and the knots of scruples in their hearts, of what use is the observance of austerity, or performance of pilgrimage, to him? 12. Blessed are the peaceful in their minds, who are viewed with as great an ardor by people, as poor men fondly dote upon gems and jewels. 13. The intelligent mind, with its gracefulness derived from good company, shines always as the goddess of riches, in the company of fairy nymphs. 14. Therefore, that blessed man is renowned as having attained the crown of a clear understanding, who never abstains himself from the company of the holy. 15. Hence all unscrupulous believers, holy men and those who are revered by people, are to be served by all means, for crossing over the ocean of the world. 16. Surely do they serve as dry fuel to hellfire, who neglect the company of the saints, which is known as rainwater, to extinguish the flames of hell. 17. The medicine of holy association serves to allay entirely all the afflictions consequent to poverty and death and tribulations of worldly affairs. 18. Contentment, society of the virtuous, ratiocination and quietism are the several means for crossing over the ocean of the world by mankind. 19. Contentment is reckoned as the best gain, good company the right course, reasoning the true knowledge, and quietism the highest bliss of man. 20. These are the four surest means to break off the trammels of the world, and whoever is practiced in these has surely passed over the erroneous waters of the terrestrial sea. 21. Learn, O best of the intelligent, that the practice of some one of these pure virtues leads to an assuitude of all the four cardinal virtues. 22. Every one of these separately is a leader to the others. Wherefore, diligently apply yourself to one of these for your success in getting them all. 23. Association with the good, contentment, right reasoning, and good judgment, joined with peace and tranquility, serve as cargo ships in the ocean of the world. 24. All prosperity attends on him who is possessed of reason, contentment, quietism and the habit of keeping good company, like the fruits of the kalpa tree, satisfying every desire. 25. The man possessed of reasoning, contentment, quietude, and a proclivity to keep good company, is attended by every grace, as all the digits unite in the full moon. 26. The happy mind, which is fraught with contentment, quietness, reasoning power, and a tendency to good company, meets with the prosperity and success, as they attend on kings, who are guided by the counsels of good ministers. 27. Therefore, O delight of Raghu's race, do you bravely govern your mind, and always practice with diligence some one of these virtues, for your conduct in life. 28. Exert your best manliness to subdue your elephantine mind, and know that until you have mastered one of these cardinal virtues, you can make no progress in holiness. 29. It must be, O Rama, that you shall have to set your heart to work by the exertion of your manliness and the gnashing of your teeth, for your success in meritorious deeds. 30. For whether you be a god or yaksha or a man or an abba, you cannot, O long-armed Rama, have a better course till then, that is, before mastering one of these qualities. 31. As soon as one of these virtues is strengthened and made fruitful in you, it will serve to weaken the force of the faults of your ungovernable mind. 32. The cultivation of virtues leads to their full growth and suppression of vice. But the fostering of vice will, on the other hand, conduce to the increase of vices and suppression of good qualities. 33. The mind is a wilderness of errors, in which the stream of our desires is running with full force, amidst its two banks, of good and evil whereon we hold our stand. 34. It bears away, and throws the man on that bank, which he strives to reach by his own exertion. Therefore, O Rama, do as you like, to reach to either shore. 35. Now try by degrees, with all the exertion of your manly force, to turn the course of your desires towards the happy shore in the forest of your mind. And know, O high-minded Rama, that one's own disposition is as a rapid current to him, which must not be permitted to bear him away to the perilous coast. Chapter 17. On the contents of the work. 1. Thus, O progeny of Raghu, it is the reasoning soul that is worthy of attending to the words of wisdom, as a prince is inclined to listen to a discourse on polity. 2. The clear and high-minded man, who has renounced the company of stupid folks, is capable of fair reasoning, as the clear sky has the capacity of receiving the moonlight. 3. You, who are replete with the entire grace of this quality, should now attend to the words that I say, to remove the errors of your mind. 4. He, the arbor of whose merits is bending down with the load of its fruits, feels a desire to hear these words for the sake of his salvation. 5. It is the noble-minded only, and not the base, that are receptacles of grand and holy sermons, conferring the knowledge of their future state. 6. This collection, consisting of 32,000 stanzas, is deemed as containing the essence of the means, conducing to liberation, and conferring the final annihilation of our being. 7. As a lighted lamp presents its light to every waking man, so does this work effect the ultimate extinction of every person whether he would like it or not. 8. one's knowledge of this work, whether by his own perusal or hearing of it from the rehearsal of others, tends to the immediate obliteration of his errors and augmentation of his delight, as it is done by the holy river of heaven, Ganges. 9. As the fallacy of a snake in the rope is removed by examining it, so the fallacy of the reality of the world is removed by perusal of this work, which gives peace to one who is vexed with and tired of the world. 10. It contains 6 books, all fraught with sentences full of reason, and each distinct from the other in its import. It has many verses, containing chosen examples on all subjects. 11. The first book treats of indifference, and causes the growth of apathy in the mind, like that of a tree in the desert soil. 12. It contains 1,500 stanzas, which being well considered in the mind, must impart a purity to it, like the luster of a gem after its polish. 13. The next book dwells on the conduct of one longing after his liberation, and contains 1,000 slokas arranged in judicious order. 14. It describes the nature of men desiring their liberation. Then follows the book on the creation of the world, and filled with narratives and examples, of various kinds. 15. It has 7,000 stanzas, teaching sound philosophy about the spectator and spectacle of the world in the forms of I and thou, designated the ego and non-ego. 16. It contains a description of the production of the world from its state of non-existence. A diligent attention to this chapter will convey a full knowledge of this world into the mind of the hearer. 17. This ego and non-ego, and this vast expanse with all the worlds, space and mountains, are to be viewed as having no form, nor foundation, and as there are no such things in reality. 18. There are no elements as the earth and others, which exist in our fancy only, and are like phantoms, appearing in a dream, or as aerial castles and chimeras of the mind. 1920. They resemble the moving hills, on the shore to one passing in a boat, without any actual movement in them. Or liken the hobgoblins appearing to an unsound mind. Such is the appearance of the world without any seed or source or origin of its own. 21. It is, as the impression of a tail in the mind, or the sight of a chain of pearls in the sky, or taking a bracelet for its gold or a wave for the water, that is, taking the appearance for its cause, or the phenomena for the noumena. 22. Or, as the blueness of the sky is always apparent to sight without its reality, and ever charming to behold without the existence of any color in it. 23. Thus whatever unreal wonders always appear to us, in our dreams or in the sky, they are but the resemblances of a fire in a picture, which seems to be burning without having any fire in it. 24. The word jagath or passing, is appropriately applied to the transitory world, which passes like the sea with its heaving waves, appearing as a chain of lotus flowers, in dancing. 25. It is, as false, as one's imagination of a body of waters, at a spot, from the sound of the ruddy geese, that live by rivers. And, as useless, as a withered forest in autumn, when the leaves and fruits fall off, and yield neither shade nor luscious nutriment, to the traveller. 26. It is full with delirious cravings, as of men at the point of death, and as dark as caverns in the mountains. Hence, the efforts of men are but acts of their frenzy. 27. It is better to dwell in the clear sky of the autumnal atmosphere of philosophy, after subsidence of the frost of ignorance, than to view at this world, which is no more than an image at a post or a picture upon the wall. 28. Know all sensible and insensible things, to be made of dust, to be reduced to dust again. Next follows the book on existence. 29. It contains 3,000 stanzas, full of explanations and narratives, showing the existence of the world to be a form, or development, of the essence of the ego, in a subjective light. 30. It treats of the manner in which the spectator, ego, is manifest as the spectacle, non-ego, and how the ten-sided sphere of the arbor of the world is manifest both as the subjective and objective, at the same time. 31. It has thus arrived at its development which is said to be everlasting. Next follows the book on quietude, consisting of 5,000 stanzas. 32. The fifth is styled the Book on Holiness, containing a series of excellent lectures, and showing the erroneous conception of the world, as I, thou and he, as distinct existences. 33. It is the suppression of this error, which forms the subject of this book. And the hearing of the chapter on quietude, serves to put an end to our transmigration in this world. 34. After suppression of the train of errors, there still remain slight vestiges of it to 100th part, as the dispersed troops in a picture afford us some faint idea of them. 35. Aiming at the object of another person, is as vain as looking at the beauty of an imaginary city, and sitting in expectation of an unattainable object. It is as a noisy fighting for something in sleep. 36. It is as vain as a man of unsubdued desires, bursting into a roaring like that of the loud and tremendous thunderclaps, and as the raising of a city on the model of one's effaced impressions in a dream. 37. It is as vain as a would-be city, with its garden and flowers and fruits growing in it. And as a sterile woman, bragging of the valorous deeds of her unborn and would-be sons. 38. Or when a painter is about to draw the picture of an imaginary city, on the groundwork of a chart, by forgetting to sketch a plan of it beforehand. 39. It is as vain as to expect evergreen herbage and fruitage, of all seasons, and the breeze of an ungrown arbor. Or to it in a future flowery parterre, pleasant with the sweets of spring. 40. Then follows the sixth book entitled Annihilation, which is as clear as the waters of a river after subsidence of its billows within itself. 41. It contains the remaining number of slokas, that is, 14,500 stanzas of the aggregate number of 32,000 slokas, composing the entire work. Our knowledge of these is pregnant with great meanings, and their understanding of them leads to the chief good of utter extinction and pacification of desires. 42. The intellect, being abstracted from all its objects, presents the manifestation of the soul, which is full of intelligence and free from all impurity. It is enveloped in the sheath of infinite vacuity, and is wholly pure and devoid of worldly errors. 43. Having finished its journey through the world and performed its duties here, the soul assumes a calmness, as that of the adamantine column of the sky, reflecting the images of the tumultuous world, without changing itself. 44. It rejoices exceedingly at its being delivered from the innumerable snares of the world, and becomes as light as air by being freed from its desire of looking after the endless objects of its enjoyments. 45. The soul, that takes no notice of the cause or effect, or doing of anything, as also of what is to be avoided or accepted, that is, which remains totally indifferent to everything, is said to be disembodied, though encumbered with a body, and to become unworldly in its worldly state. 46. The intelligent soul is compared to a solid rock, compact and without any gap in it. it is the sun of intelligence, which enlightens all people, and dispels the darkness of ignorance. 47. This soul, though so very luminous, has become grossly darkened, in its nature, by being confined to the vile fooleries of the world, and wasted by the malady of its cravings. 48. When freed from the chimera of its egoism, it becomes incorporeal, even in its embodied state, and beholds the glory of the whole world, as it was placed at the point of one of the myriads of hairs, on its body, or like a bee, sitting on a flower upon the Sumra mountain. 49. The intelligent and vacuous soul contains and beholds in its sphere 1,000 glories of the world, shining in each atom, as it was in a mirror. 50. It is not even possible to thousands of Haris, Huras, and Brahmas, to equal the great-minded sage in the extent of his comprehensive soul. Because the liberated have their chief good, of internal joy, stretched to a far greater limit than any. Chapter 18. 1. Vasishta said. The several parts of this work as already related, give rise to the understanding, as seeds sown in a good field, never fail to produce good fruitage. 2. Even human compositions are acceptable when they are instructive of good sense. Otherwise, the Vedas also are to be renounced, as unreliable. Because men are required always to abide by reason. 3. Words conformable with reason are to be received even if spoken by boys. Otherwise, they are to be rejected as straws though pronounced by the lotus-born Brahma himself. 4. Whoever drinks from a well, by reason of its being dug by his ancestors, and rejects the holy water of the Ganges, even when placed before him, is an incorrigible simpleton. 5. As early dawn is invariably accompanied by its train of light, so is good judgment an inevitable attendant on the perusal of this work. 6. Whether these lessons are heard from the mouth of the learned, or well studied by one's self, they will gradually make their impressions upon the mind by one's constant reflection on their sense. 7. They will first furnish to the learner a variety of Sanskrit expressions, and then spread before him a series of holy and judicious maxims, like so many ornamental creepers to decorate the hall. 8. They will produce a cleverness, joined with such qualifications and greatness, as to engage the good grace of gods and kings. 9. They are called the intelligent who know the cause and effect of things, and are likened to a torchbearer, who is clear-sighted in the darkness of the night. Like the star of the Stoics. 10. All their erroneous and covetous thoughts become weaker by degrees, as the regions of the sky are cleared of their mists at the approach of autumn. 11. Your thoughts require only the guidance of reason to hit the right, as every action needs be duly performed to make it successful. 12. The intellect becomes, by culture, as clear as a great lake in autumn, and it gets its calmness, by reason, like that of the sea after its churning by the Mandara mountain. 13. Like the flame of a chandelier, cleansed of its sootiness and dispelling the shroud of darkness, the refined intellect shines forth in full brightness, and distinguishes the different natures of things. 14. The evils of penury and poverty cannot overpower on them, whose strong sight can discern the evils of their opposites, wealth and riches. As no dart can pierce the mortal parts of a soldier clad in full armor. 15. No worldly fears can haunt the heart of the wise man, however nearest they may approach to him. Just as no arrow can pierce through a huge solid stone. 16. Such doubts as whether it is destiny or our own merit that is the cause of our births and actions, are removed by learning, as darkness is dispelled by daylight. 17. There is a calm tranquility, attending upon the wise at all times and in all conditions of life. So also does the light of reason, like solar rays, follow the dark night of error. 18. The man of right judgment has a soul as deep as the ocean, and as firm as a mountain, and a cool serenity always shines within him like that of moonlight. 19. It is he who arrives slowly at what is called living liberation, who remains calm amidst the endless turmoil of the world, and is quite aloof from common talk, that is, unnoticed by the world. 20. His mind is calm and cool at everything. It is pure, and full of heavenly light, shining serenely, as the autumnal night with the radiance of moonbeams. 21. When the sun of reason illumines the cloudless region of the mind, no portentous comet of evil can make its appearance within its sphere. 22. All desires are at rest with the elevated. They are pure, with the steady, and indifferent to the inert, like the body of light clouds in autumn. 23. The slanders of envious ill-wishers are put out of countenance by the wise, as the frolics of goblins disappear at the approach of day. 24. The mind, that is fixed on the firm basis of virtue, and placed under the burthen of patience, is not to be shaken by accidents, but remains as a plant in a painting, unmoved by winds. 25. The knowing man does not fall into the pitfalls lying all about the affairs of this world. For who that knows the way will run into the ditch? 26. The minds of the wise are as much delighted in acting conformably to the precepts of good books, and the examples of the virtuous, as chaste women are fond of keeping themselves within the bounds of the inner apartments. 27. Of the innumerable millions of atoms, which compose this universe, every one of them is viewed in the light of a world in the mind of the abstracted philosopher. 28. The man, whose mind is purified by a knowledge of the precepts of liberation, neither repines nor rejoices at the loss or gain of the objects of enjoyment. 29. Men of unfettered minds look upon the appearance and disappearance of every atomic world, as the fluctuating wave of the sea. 30. They neither grieve at unwished-for occurrences nor pine for their wished-for chances. And knowing well all accidents to be the consequences of their actions, they remain as unconscious as trees, totally insensible of them. 31. These holy men appear as common people, and live upon what they get. Whether they meet with aught of welcome, or unwelcome to them, their minds remain unconquered. 32. They having understood the whole of this sastra, and having read and considered it well as pondered on its purport, hold their silence as in the case of a curse or blessing, which is never uttered by saints. 33. This sastra is easy to be understood, and is ornamented with figures of speech. It is a poem, full of flavors and embellished with beautiful similes. 34. One may be self-taught in it, who has a slight knowledge of words and their senses. But he who does not understand the purport well, should learn it from a pandit. 35. After hearing, thinking and understanding this work, one has no more need of practicing austerities, or of meditation and repeating the mantras and other rites. And a man requires nothing else in this world for the attainment of his liberation. 36. By deep study of this work, and its repeated perusal, a man attains to an uncommon scholarship, next to the purification of his soul. 37. the ego and the non-ego, that is, the viewer and the view, are both but chimeras of the imagination, and it is their annihilation alone that leads insensibly to the vision of the soul. 38. The error of the reality of ego and the perceptible world will vanish away, as visions in a dream. For who that knows the falsehood of dreams will fall into the error of taking them for truth? 39. As an imaginary palace gives no joy or grief to anybody, so it is in the case of the erroneous conception of the world. 40. As nobody is afraid of a serpent that he sees in painting, so the sight of a living serpent neither terrifies nor pleases one who knows it. 41. And as it is, our knowledge of the painted serpent, that removes our fear of it as a serpent, so our conviction of the unreality of the world must disperse our mistake of its existence. 42. Even the plucking of a flower, or tearing of its tender leaflet, is attended with a little exertion of the nails and fingers, but no bodily exertion whatever is required to gain the blessed state of yoga meditation. 43. There is an action of the members of body, accompanied with the act of plucking or pulling off a flower. But in the other case, of yoga, you have only to fix your mind, and make no exertion of your body. 44. It is practicable, with ease by anyone sitting on his easy seat, and fed with his usual food, and not addicted to gross pleasures, nor trespassing the rules of good conduct. 45. You can derive happiness, at each place and time, from your own observations, as also from your association with the good, wherever it is available. This is an optional rule. 46. These are the means of gaining a knowledge of the highest wisdom, conferring peace in this world, and saving us from the pain of being reborn in the womb. 47. But, such as are afraid of this course, and are addicted to the vicious pleasures of the world, are to be reckoned as too base, and no better than feces and worms of their mother's bowels. 48. Attend now, Rama, to what I am going to say, with regard to the advancement of knowledge, and improvement of the understanding in another way. 49. Hear now, the recent method in which this sastra is learnt by people, and its true sense interpreted to them, by means of its exposition. 50. That thing, which serves to explain the unapparent meaning of a passage, by its illustration, by something that is well known, and which may be useful to help the understanding of the passage, is called a simile or example. 51. It is hard to understand the meaning given before without an instance, just as it is useless to have a lamp stick at home, without setting a lamp on it at night. 52. Whatever similes and examples I have used to make you understand the precepts, are all derived from some cause or other, but they lead to knowledge of the uncaused Brahma. 53. Wherever the comparisons and compared objects are used as expressive of the cause and effect, they apply to all cases except Brahma, who is without a cause. 54. The examples that are given to explain the nature of Brahma are to be taken in their partial, and not general, sense. 55. Whatever examples are given here as explanatory of divine nature, they are to be understood as appertaining to a world seen in a dream. 56. In such cases, no corporeal instance can apply to the incorporeal Brahma, nor optional and ambiguous expressions give a definite idea of him. 57. Those who find fault with instances of an imperfect or contradictory nature cannot blame our comparison of the appearance of the world to a vision in dream. 58. a prior and posterior non-entity, is considered as existent at the present moment, as is the visible world, which was not, nor will be afterwards. So the waking and dreaming states are known to be alike from our boyhood. 59. The simile of the existence of the world with the dreaming state is exact, in all instances, as our desires, thoughts, our pleasures and displeasures, and all other acts are alike in both states. 60. Both this work and others, which have been composed by other authors on the means of salvation, have all pursued the same plan in their explanation of the knowable. 61. The resemblance of the world to a dream is found also in the Srutis or Vedanta. It is not to be explained, in a word, but requires a continued course of lectures on the subject. 62. The comparison of the world to an imagery in the dream or an imaginary utopia of the mind is also adduced in examples of this kind in preference to others. 63. Whenever a causality is shown by a simile of something which is no cause, there the simile is applied in some particular and not all its general attributes. 64. The partial similitude of this comparison with some property of the compared object is unhesitatingly acknowledged by the learned in all their illustrations. 65. The light of the sense of something is compared with a lamp in its brightness only, in disregard of its stand or stick, the oil or the wick. 66. The compared object is to be understood in its capacity of admitting a partial comparison of the properties. As in the instance of sense and light, the simile consists in the brightness of both. 67. When the knowledge of the knowable thing is derived from some particular property of the comparison, it is granted as a suitable simile, in understanding the sense of some great saying, passage in the scriptures. 68. We must not overshadow our intellect by bad logic, nor set at naught our common sense by an unholy skepticism. 69. We have by our reasoning well weighed the verbosity of our opinionative adversaries, and never set aside the holy sayings of the Vedas, even when they are at variance with the opinions of our families. 70. O Rama! We have stored in our minds the truths resulting from the unanimous voice of all the sastras, whereby it will be evident that we have attained the object of our belief, apart from the fabricated systems of heretical sastras.